How you going? Well, here again, I must be on a bit of a roll doing, that'll be about 3 of them in one night, and maybe might even do another one. We'll see how we go. So just for the people who've been watching, I'm in a different room now because I'm only a few days away from going back to Melbourne from India, and so I do get around from state to state. I've got lectures to do, and I also have lots of people to meet. So towards the end of my working 3 weeks, I get to do all that stuff. Now, so this video will be quite short again, and I just want to talk about flat earth attitudes towards stars, planets, or luminaries as they call them, and see if I can't put that nonsense to rest. Okay. Well, let's consider some of the things that you have to be putting in your mind if you actually believe that the stars are just local, and planets as well. So you think these are just luminaries. So is that a catch-all phrase for things that produce light, I presume? Okay. Well, they move around at night. You actually get to see them move about 15 degrees per hour. Strangely, that's the same wherever you are. So, do flat earth people all live in cities? Because if you lived in the countryside, certainly over here in India or in Australia, and you look up, there's billions and trillions of stars. The sky is just full of them. So how do you get that into your head, that all of these trillions of stars are somehow suspended in goodness knows what above the earth? Is it within the atmosphere, within your dome, painted on your dome? How on earth do they move these 15 degrees per hour? And of course, if you have any half-decent telescope, you can actually see the planets. And if you look at a planet like Venus, you can actually see it has phases, just like our moon. And some of the planets actually have moons of their own, and you can see them. So how you manage to get your idea about how these magically suspended stars are, billions and trillions of them are in the sky above the earth, is very, very strange. And stranger still is this idea that the moon produces its own light. That is wacky. Considering that you can just get yourself a pair of binoculars, look at the moon, crescent moon, and you can actually see the craters. You can see the craters at the boundary between the dark parts and the light parts, and you can actually see the shadows in the craters. Now, hundreds of people have taken photos of those things, so even if you don't have access to a telescope, you can certainly see many photos taken by other people. And when you do look at a crescent moon, it's patently, obviously a sphere. Now, one thing, I'll just digress a little bit. The flat earthers say silly things like, just because the luminaries are spheres doesn't mean that the earth is. And then they cite some sort of ridiculous analogy about billiard balls and a billiard table. So the billiard balls are spheres and the billiard table is flat. Well, that's just ridiculous. The other bodies which are large enough are spheres, precisely for the same reason that the Earth is. The Earth necessarily has to be a sphere because of its size, and it's practically malleable with its tectonic plates, and it spins, goes around once in 24 hours, but that's enough to make sure that it does remain a sphere. Okay, now this moon that supposedly have its own light, who turns off these lights and who turns them on again during the phases of the moon? Maybe you flat people think that there is actually a man in the moon who switches the lights off and on? Why aren't you asking yourself these questions? You're so busy asking silly questions of people who understand that the moon is a sphere and pretty much a rock, that you don't even ask yourself some basic questions. So the sun reflects, shines on the moon, and the moon reflects that light. And it's patently obvious that's happening when you have a look through a telescope. So please, do yourself a favor. Whoever put you up to this moon has its own light nonsense, give them a good smack up about the face, and then give yourself 2 good swift uppercuts to the jaw for being stupid enough to believe it. Okay, maybe that's enough. Cheers.